Today, we're going to explore a really fascinating biological puzzle. It's a question that kind of flips what we think we know about disease on its head. And believe it or not, it all starts with the biggest animals on Earth.
So here's the thing. You'd think that having more cells and living longer would mean a higher risk of cancer, right? I mean, every single time a cell divides, there's a tiny chance for a mutation that could go wrong. So an animal like an elephant or a whale, they should basically be cancer magnets, but they're not. And that contradiction, it's called Peto's paradox. It's one of the biggest mysteries in biology.
So, the big question is, how did evolution solve this? Well, it turns out nature is pretty clever. It didn't just find one solution, it came up with a bunch of them. And today, we're going to walk through 3 really different strategies that different animals use to protect themselves. Each one gives us a little peek into just how creative evolution can be.
All right, let's start with strategy number 1, genetic overload. In our first example, the elephant. Their approach is all about overwhelming force. They've basically armed themselves to the teeth, genetically speaking, with a whole bunch of a super important defense gene. Just take a look at these numbers. It's pretty staggering. For humans, cancer is, unfortunately, a very common cause of death. But for elephants, who have way more cells than we do, their cancer rate is tiny, only about 5%. I mean, this chart right here is the paradox, laid out plain and simple. So, how on earth do they pull that off?
Okay, so the secret starts with this one special gene. It's called TP53, but it has a much cooler nickname, the guardian of the genome. And it really earns that name. Think of it like a quality control manager for your cells. Its whole job is to spot DNA damage. And if a cell is damaged beyond repair, TP53 makes the call. It tells that cell to self-destruct. This nips potential cancers in the bud before they even have a chance to start. It's an absolutely critical defense.
And this is the elephant's big secret. We humans, we have just one copy of this guardian gene. Elephants, they have more than 20. Think about that. It's like having 20 security guards on patrol instead of just one. It's no wonder their response to damaged cells is so much faster and stronger. They can just shut down threats with incredible efficiency.
Okay, on to our second strategy. This one isn't about brute force. It's about something more like superior maintenance. Let's look at the approach that whales and sharks take. They've developed these really sophisticated systems for constant repair, basically stopping problems before they can even begin.
I mean, if you're an animal that can live for 2 centuries, you can't just be reacting to problems all the time. Prevention is the name of the game. And that's exactly what whales have figured out. Their cells have extra tools for DNA repair. Their cell division is slower, more deliberate, more controlled, and they're just better at catching any errors that do pop up. Put it all together, and it means their cells just make far fewer dangerous mistakes over those super long lives.
Now this brings us to something you've probably heard before, the idea that sharks can't get cancer. Well, that's actually a myth. They do get it, but the reality is almost more interesting. Just like whales, sharks have these incredibly efficient immune systems and DNA repair kits. So while they're not immune, they do get cancer a lot less often than you'd expect. It's not magic, it's just really good biological maintenance. And now for our third strategy, which is, well, it's definitely the weirdest one. It comes from the naked mole rat. And what's so strange is that their defense isn't just happening inside their cells, it's also happening in the space between their cells. So what's their secret? It all comes down to a substance called hyaluronic acid. Now, we actually make this stuff too, but the naked mole rat's version is different. It's a much larger molecule, and it's super sticky. And that one unique property, that's the key to why they are so resistant to cancer. So how does a sticky substance stop cancer? Well, it basically gums up the works. It creates this physical barrier between cells so they can't get all crowded and packed together, which is something that can trigger tumor growth. This whole system is so sensitive that it stops any abnormal growth really early. It essentially makes their entire body a hostile environment for cancer to even get started.
Okay, so looking at all these natural wonders is pretty amazing. But what are scientists actually trying to do with this information? It's really important to be clear here. They're not looking for some kind of miracle cure. This is about careful, methodical science, looking for real insights.
These are the kinds of questions that are actually driving the research. How did evolution even come up with these solutions in the first place? What could we learn from these natural blueprints? And maybe, just maybe, could that knowledge help us find better ways to prevent or detect cancer earlier in people? See, the whole focus is on learning from nature, not on finding some magical cure. And I think it's really important to keep this in perspective. This isn't about hype, this is about responsible science. The real goal here is to gather insights that could, down the road, lead to better ways to prevent disease. It's about trying to understand the blueprints that nature has already created for a more resilient system. So when you step back and look at all of this, the elephant's genetic firepower, the whale's constant upkeep, the mole rat's defensive goo, you start to see a bigger picture. And it really changes how you think about health. And here's the key takeaway. Over millions and millions of years, nature's real genius wasn't in finding a cure for cancer. It was in building better protection systems, designing bodies in a way that makes cancer much less likely to happen to begin with. It seems like nature's favorite strategy is prevention, not reaction. So we've looked at everything from a massive genetic army to a sticky cellular defense. It's all pretty remarkable. I'm actually curious, which one of these solutions did you find the most surprising? Let me know what you think. Thanks so much for joining me for this.